Okay, good afternoon everyone. We've just had a severe weather briefing and just want to talk to especially the residents in southeast Queensland this afternoon, and we've had all of the mayors on the phone line as well, and we'll be actually standing up our Queensland Disaster Management Group tomorrow morning. But I just want to explain this to people in as simple language as I possibly can. So at the moment what we have is similar to like Cyclone Debbie or Cyclone Oswald or a monsoonal trough that we saw in Townsville, where it's just sitting over the entire southeast of our state. Now, usually when we have a rain event, we might have a bit of rain at Noosa, we might have a bit of rain over the Lockyer Valley or a bit of rain over Toowoomba, and usually it misses Wivenhoe. But at the moment what we have is we have the entire catchments of southeast Queensland which are being inundated, and we also have this rain event that we thought was going to be easing this afternoon around 4 o'clock, but we expect it to be here with us for at least the next 24 hours. So it does mean that we are monitoring very closely the river systems. We are monitoring Wivenhoe. Let me say up front, we've got experts here today about water, and at this stage we are not concerned because we are able to do the releases in a measured way. So please, I know this is of concern to many people who have experienced 2011. Please, there is no concern for alarm. However, there has been a lot of rain in the Mary River. Now, the concern there is for the township of Gympie. We expect that this rain event could produce levels of rainfall in Gympie which exceed the major flood levels of over 21 metres. Now, I think it's time to take some proactive measures. So we've been meeting today. I've spoken with the Mayor as well on the phone, and as a precaution, because we don't want people trapped in the evening, we will be issuing some evacuation alerts, especially for around 700 residents in the Gympie area. If we don't do this now, people will become isolated and trapped. So we are proactively putting out the emergency alerts today in conjunction with the local disaster management group. And of course I think people would understand that this is incredibly important at this stage. And I want to thank the Gympie businesses for doing the right thing, and the Gympie residents. Our concern is for your safety, and this is why this is happening. I know a lot of elderly people also live in Gympie. We've got police that are able to assist, SES crews, and we are looking at any more aerial support as well. Now, in relation to the other areas we're monitoring very closely, on the Sunshine Coast, in some of the low-lying areas, we are monitoring very closely. We are not concerned at the moment, but I want these areas to be listening to alerts during the course of this afternoon and this evening. That is Tewantin, Picnic Point and Dunedin Rock. So we're monitoring those very carefully. Now, in the area of Logan, the Logan River and the Albert River, we're monitoring those systems, and we want the people of Bow Desert to be listening to any issues of concern. But of course, please listen, but I'm just giving advice at the moment that these are the communities at this point in time we need to be listening to these alerts. Now, in Maryborough, it's not expected until later Sunday, but we are expecting higher flood levels than what we experienced in January. The people of Mirabara have been through a lot and they're very resilient, and we're working very closely with their local disaster management groups as well. So that's the major issue at the moment. In terms of the Bremer River, it's well below 2011, so again, but as you can see, there is a lot of rain. There is a lot of rain happening across our southeast. There are 1,000 road closures. You'll be able to hear from the Transport Minister. He'll go through those, and if it's flooded, forget it. We are seeing a lot of our catchment areas, the low-lying river systems causing some issues at the moment. Tonight is probably not the night to take any risks. So if you are any areas surrounding these rivers, please listen to the advice that will be coming. Our emergency services staff, our police, all of our councils have been working very collaboratively together. I thank them for that. The Prime Minister's been in contact with me. I'll be having a conversation with him shortly after this briefing as well, but I know that we'll be able to get any assistance that we need. I also want to alert Cherbourg. We expect that Cherbourg residents may be isolated as well. So we are in the process of putting in some resupplies there for the next 3 days. There have been 22 emergency alerts that have been issued recently. The SES has done some 1,900 call-outs, and there have been some 92 swiftwater rescues as well. So I'll hand over to David from the Bureau. Then you'll hear from the State Disaster Coordinator. We'll give an update on the water volumes, especially in the Wivenhoe area and our southeast dam catchment area. But I'll hand over to David. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. So as mentioned earlier, we are in the middle of what could be and what is a season-defining event for much of southeast Queensland. We're seeing continued areas of heavy rain across the southeast, which are now likely to persist into the course of Sunday. As of this afternoon at 2 p.m, we're starting to see the heaviest rainfall probably now existing across Brisbane, extending into parts of Ipswich and parts of Redland City Council areas. This area is expected to continue during the course of today, and for those areas further north where there is a temporary reprieve, there is a potential, unfortunately, for renewed heavy rain into the course of tonight. Local intense falls are occurring during the course of today, and we've recently seen the most heaviest falls around the Caboolture area, and earlier this morning we saw it up around the Sunshine Coast and towards Noosa. With many catchments now saturated, there is a potential for dangerous and life-threatening flash flooding. And on top of that, with all these saturated grounds, localised landslides cannot be discounted during the remainder of this event. Numerous major flood warnings are now current for many catchments across southeast Queensland, and the number and the severity of these flood warnings is only going to increase as we continue through this rainfall event. It must be emphasised that it is too early to call flood peaks on some of our rivers, just due to the fact that it is still continuing to rain across much of our catchments around the area. For where we don't have any current flood warnings, a flood watch still does exist for a lot of those catchments. While we still have this rainfall event, there is the potential for further rises on those catchments that aren't seeing any at the moment. And finally, damaging wind gusts. This low pressure system that is lingering around the southeast is going to intensify into tonight, hence bringing this potential renewed burst of rainfall, but also with that, localised damaging wind gusts that could occur about the coastline and also about our hinterland areas. And again, where we've got saturated grounds, any shallow-rooted trees, they could fall in these events if they were to combine. Digging into the details of some of our flood warnings. So we still do have a major flood warning that's going for the parts of the Brisbane River. We've seen significant flooding in the Lockyer Valley yesterday, and again, we're seeing some renewed rises, very rapid rises around the Lockyer Valley during the course of today. Major flooding is now being recorded on the Bremer River at Ipswich, and minor flood peaks are also starting to occur at the Brisbane City, which did occur on the high tide today and will once again occur during the course of tomorrow. Again, with further rain and tides being elevated, and further waters coming in from our local creeks, we will see further rises on that Brisbane River. 2011 levels for both these catchments are still much higher, but again, rain is still falling across these catchments. Widespread moderate to major flooding is otherwise occurring across much of the remainder of the Brisbane River catchment. Moving on to the Mary River, we do have a major flood warning, so major flood levels are now occurring at Gympie, and they've already exceeded the 2011 and 2013 peaks. With forecast rainfall, the river may exceed levels that have not been seen since at least February of 1999. And again, further rainfall could occur around the Mary River catchment over the next 24 hours. Next, moving on to Maryborough, it's likely to exceed the major flood level during the course of Sunday, and again, it may exceed a peak that was experienced during the course of January of this year, during Cyclone Seth. The major flood warnings that are going for the Mooloolah, Noosa and Maroochy rivers are said to be a very significant flood peak. These flood peaks may exceed what was last experienced during the course of 1992, so over 30 years since these areas have experienced such a flood. These flood peaks are going to start during the course of today and of course continue during the course of Sunday. And lastly, our last major flood warning as it stands around southeast Queensland is the one that we've got going for the Logan River, with the potential for major flooding at Outages during the course of this weekend. Of course, we've got many other flood warnings that are current across southeast Queensland. And with rain continuing occurring, you can't discount that we could see an increase in the number and the severity of these warnings. And again, got to emphasise that we could see the potential for significant and dangerous flash flooding over the course of the next 24 hours with all these very wet catchments. Thank you, and I'll now pass over to the State Disaster Coordinator.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you've heard, this event still continues to unfold quite rapidly. We are seeing increased operational activities and responses right across the southeast. We are still have lost 4 persons unfortunately in this event, and we still have 1 person missing in the Gomborian area that we are still searching for. Happily, we had 3 persons missing in the Maryborough area, but they are currently being rescued as we went into our briefing, and I'm sure that Commissioner Leach will update us on all of the rescues that are happening right across the southeast corner. Can I please add to what the Premier has said? Stay connected. There are multiple warnings going out around severe weather events. We've just had one come through the Caboolture area that has impacted significantly, and we're seeing calls for service in that area. When it comes to calls for service, of course, if people need just assistance because there's problems with their house and they have leaking roofs and the like, SES, please contact the SES. But if you are experiencing a life-threatening situation or you are at risk, please ring 000. That is the appropriate place to get support. There are multiple road closures right across the southeast corner. I'm not going to go into all those details other than to say that that rapidly changes. Now is not the time to be out and about on our roads unless you absolutely have to. If it's flooded, forget it. We really need people to stay in place where they can and remain safe. This event is not going to finish soon, and we do not want to lose any more people. So please, if it's flooded, forget it. We are, as you've heard, planning for evacuations in Gympie. That is unfolding as we speak, and an emergency alert will or is going out this afternoon. For those persons in the Gympie area that applies to, please take heed of that evacuation advice. We need to get you safe while it's daylight, and whilst we've got access into different areas. We have got contingency planning in place on the ground up there so that we have pre-deployed swiftwater rescue, we have pre-deployed water police. We are able to operate in that area once the flooding comes through, but it is much safer for everybody if we move sooner, and in particular those 700 impacted residents and the 100 or so businesses. They should be doing that action as we speak and concluding it very shortly. There is sufficient evacuation centre capacity in Gympie to be able to accommodate all of those people and to be looked after, so please do that. We have 20 evacuation centres operating right across the southeast corner, and at the moment we have 500 people in those centres. They have plenty of capacity, so again, if you need to go to an evacuation centre, the best thing to do is get online and see where the closest one is to you and go to there where you can get support. There are power outages again, so people need to be patient. We've got around, this morning we had around 7,700 customers out right across the southeast corner. That's likely to keep happening. People in areas that are being impacted can expect there to be power outages. And certainly as we see some of these peaks start to happen in various areas, that there may well be impact on access and to power in those areas. But please be aware that we are working very hard to make sure that all gets put back in very quickly. I'm going to finish off by saying that the message to our community is one of safety first and foremost. So for the next period when this weather is still happening, we're asking you to listen to the messaging, to stay where you're safe, and if it's flooded, forget it. Thank you. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. With this significant rainfall event that we're seeing across southeast Queensland, and in particular the severe thunderstorms that are associated with it, it's creating a very dynamic situation for first responders. We're currently responding to buildings inundated in the Caboolture, Morayfield, Woodford area, and we're continuing to respond in places like Gympie, the Sunshine Coast, Noosa, and in the Lockyer Valley. If you need State Emergency Service assistance for inundation or for tarping, please dial 132 500 and be patient. We are under a lot of pressure at the moment, but we will get to you. If you're experiencing a life-threatening emergency, then please dial 000. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. As it currently stands, the combined level of the SEQ water grid is at 97.8%. Now, a key component of this is Wivenhoe. As at about midday today, Wivenhoe topped 100% of its current drinking supply levels. Now, there's a couple of important things about that. One is that the drinking supply level of Wivenhoe Dam is about 1.165 million megalitres. There is, on top of that, in Wivenhoe Dam, over 2 million megalitres of flood capacity supply, which means that for those who are interested in, for instance, how this compares to the 2011 event, there is a lot more, in fact, about 2 million more megalitres of supply that this dam can take at this point in time. You'll know that there were some releases from Wivenhoe during the course of last evening, and they were done at the time to do some strategic releases in order to manage water flow levels between the various parts of the SEQ network. Future releases will be looked at through the lens of the flood manuals that Seqwater operate by, and through the lens of when rain and river levels subside. Thank you.
Mr Bailey, Rhodes.
Thanks very much, Premier. Look, as has been reported, there's nearly 1,000 South East Queensland roads from Wide Bay to the border that are closed due to flooding. It's a rapidly changing situation, so the advice is if you don't have to go out, please do not go out. Don't create a problem where there might be quite preventable. If you have to go out, be pre-warned. Look up QLD traffic for live traffic information. It might save you a lot of time. It might make a safer journey. Very important. So Bruce Highway is cut in multiple places between Brisbane and Maryborough, including at Gympie. We're seeing the Warrego Highway cut in a number of places between Toowoomba and Brisbane. And we're seeing the Toowoomba Connection Road there in both directions closed coming down the range. In terms of trains, where our long distance trains are suspended for a couple of days at least, and we're monitoring that situation. We're seeing the Shorncliffe line suspended north of the Northgate station. The Sunshine Coast line is closed north of Caboolture station, and we're seeing all train lines west of Ipswich currently suspended. In terms of boaties, for the boaties out there, obviously this is not the weather to be out. So we are saying to people, make safety your first priority and make sure that you're on land, not out. There's a lot of debris in our waterways, which is quite unsafe. So we're looking at working very well with councils, but what I say to people is there is so much water around and it's moving so quickly, we can shut a lot of roads, we get to everything that we can. But if you have to drive out there, give yourself that extra bit of time. Make sure you drop your speeds and be prepared for the unpredictable. We've already lost 4 people on our roads. We don't want to lose any more. So be informed before you go out. Do your research and to see whether those roads will be closed. But be ready and be aware that there might be flooding across the road you didn't know about. Make sure your speeds are a bit lower than normal. Thank you.
Any questions?
Just given how long the system's been lingering for now and its impact, have officials been caught off guard essentially by the impact of this event?
We can't control nature, unfortunately, and expectation was that this system would move quite quickly through, but it hasn't. It's decided to stay. So we are keeping all of the councils are really well prepared, especially with their local disaster management groups. Everybody is working very well together. And as I said, the priority at the moment is on Gympie. So can I please state once again, if you are in Gympie and you are likely to be in what could be a flood impacted area and you have been issued with an emergency alert, please comply with the emergency alert. Don't put yourself or your loved ones in danger. And this afternoon and tonight on the roads, everyone, please be very, very careful. We know that this system is going to be around for the next 24 to 30 hours at this stage. So please think about your movements and avoid any unnecessary travel. And if it's flooded, forget it.
Just in relation to Wivenhoe Dam, are officials confident that that excess capacity is not going to be breached, based on the predicted rainfall that we're expected to see over the next 24 to 30?
Yeah, we've got an official from SEQ Water, if you want to address. Thank you.
Yes, so the current modelling that we're using in conjunction with the BOM is not predicting that that capacity will be filled up.
And then, will we see a number of releases over the next little while?
We will, but as Graham said earlier, that'll be, we're playing a balancing act in terms of making sure that we're not increasing the flows downstream unnecessarily. So we'll wait for the rain to subside and the flows to subside in the rivers, and that's the point at which we release in accordance with the flood manuals.
Yeah, and there's a question for the weather bureau.
Yes.
We've been talking a lot about, different levels of flooding. Are there certain areas of Brisbane that are experiencing high levels of flooding, high levels of rainfall than what we saw in the 2011 flood event?
At the moment, in terms of Brisbane and the flood levels, there are many creeks that have had very high rises over the last 24 hours. And on this morning's high tide, we did see some low levels of inundation along the foreshore of the Brisbane River. And of course, many of the dams, little dams around Brisbane, are now full as well, and there is some spilling that is infiltrating our creeks. So flash flooding will remain a risk around a lot of those creeks. And of course, where there's tidal influences, that will also influence the flood peaks for those locations over the next few days. And of course, with the Brisbane City Gauge, as I mentioned, we're currently forecasting minor flood levels for the Brisbane City Gauge with the high tides over the weekend. And of course, as we see this rain continue and upstream peaks occur, then we'll refine our forecast for the Brisbane City location.
Just on 2011, what would you say to people who might be anxious or getting flashbacks to that
Yeah, I understand that there would be people who are concerned, and as we said, we are monitoring everything very, very carefully. And like I said at the start, this is something that is completely unpredictable in terms of this big rain event occurring over the entirety of the southeast Queensland. So please listen to alerts. Everyone, please stay calm and also listen to all of the media outlets over the next 24 hours. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.